God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors and he parted the raging sea. My God, he holds a victory. Yeah. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. Oh, oh, oh. We'll shout out your praise. And we sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause he hung up on that cross and he rose up from that grave. My God, still rolling stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. But we won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. So we were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We were forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. 'Cause we were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by his grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We'll shout out your praise. Oh, oh, oh. We'll shout out your praise. Good morning, Lakeside. Thank you all for joining us this morning. How great it is to be in the house of the Lord. Just a quick disclaimer that the message this morning is a little bit geared towards adults. So if you have not heard about our child care, we have great child care down the hall from kindergarten, littles, all the way up to 5th grade. We have great people down there, so just to let you know, we continue on with Everbeat.
Like a vow that is tested. your bride, free of all her guilt, rid of all her shame, and known by her true name. And that's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And that's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands, and this is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. See you move mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I see you move mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. And I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. All these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole. Empty-handed, but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. You take our failure, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Oh, I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. Heavenly Father, your grace is just so amazing that we'll never comprehend why you give it to us, Lord, and all the things that we've done. We talked about it last week and the struggles that we can come and face and with our sins, Lord, but you continue to shed your love onto us, and we don't deserve it. And that grace that you give us, that we can give on to others who wrong us, and just to let them know that it's okay, and that Jesus' love is greater than anything. And you laid yourself down, you died on the cross for us, for all those sins, to be carried onto you, so we don't have to feel that weight anymore. And we thank you for that. And in your name we pray. Amen.
My wife has been wanting a new family picture for months, and it's been something I've delayed and I've delayed and I've delayed, and she keeps mentioning it. She's like, the last time we had a family picture, we could lift both boys in our arms. It's time for us to get a new family picture. And I'm like, all right, we'll get a new family picture. So what does this mean? Like, are we having to hire the photographer and go to the apple orchard and, have the posed fall shot? Are we going to hold a like, what do you want to do here? And so we finally worked to the point where there was an agreement made where we would find a stand that we could take our picture, and it wouldn't take that long. And I'm like, fantastic. So we decided we were going to do this yesterday. And a couple hours before it was time to do the picture, I thought, my wife and I talked, and we agreed that yesterday was going to be the day. Apparently, our communication was not as strong as I believed it was, because as I was getting ready to go take the picture, she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to go take the picture." And she said, "Oh, we're doing that today." And I'm like, "Hey, I thought we were." And she said, "Well, the boys don't really want to." And I said, "Well, the boys don't live in a democracy, and we're not going to play the game of waiting till our children decide they want to take a family picture to take a family picture, because we will never have another family picture if that's the case. So we will take it, and we will take it today." And then they decided they were going to protest, so I just started walking in their rooms and taking stuff. Every protest, I took something. I'm like, as soon as you take the picture and it's a good shot, you get your stuff back. So let me know how long you want to play this game, because I'll just keep counting the steps. And they were finally like, all right, fine, we'll take the family photo. I'm like, and put a smile on your face. So we get to the spot, we set up everything, we take a couple shots. I've got one son who's like, all right, let's go. We've taken a couple shots, we're good. I've got another son who's annoyed, and the reason he's annoyed is because he wants to do his own photo shoot. He's like his mother. I don't know what to tell you. And so we've got this dynamic at play, and they're just like, after about 12 shots, they're like, we don't want to be here. And I just started smiling to myself, because it reminded me, and I have trauma from family photos. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this. My parents will come to visit, and they just bring this giant tub. It's like a 30-gallon tub that they carry out of their trunk and just plop down in my garage. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's in there? Oh, some of your stuff that we've cleaned out of the attic that we thought you'd like to have. I don't want that stuff. I've not missed it a day in my life. You're just trying to unload it on me. Well, and one of these drops that they've done at my house, there was an old photo. Now, churches used to have church directories that would be printed, and there was a company called Olin Mills. Now, I don't know if any of you have deep wounds and scars from the Olin Mills days, but I do. My father was a pastor, so we were getting ready for our church directory photo, and we had to dress up, suit and tie, you name it, back in the late 90s. And they've got these backgrounds, and the church photographer would be there, and it's all just to sell you on these family portraits. And we take the photo, and again, we have to be in the directory. My dad's the pastor of the church. And my sister, myself, and my mom, we all look good in the photo. And my dad just looks like a jagaloon. I mean, he looked absolutely hideous. Well, he's the pastor of the church, so he's like, I can't look like that in the church directory. So we have to take another photo, and all three of us look horrible, and he looks all right. And so that's the picture that was chosen for us. And so in this drop-off is a copy of that picture that one of my sons now has in his bedroom that he loves to pull out and laugh at. So I have these scars and I have these wounds, and I just relived yesterday vicariously through them as they're like, let's be done with this family photo process. Enough already. And if they turn out somewhat decent, I'm sure we'll post a couple on social media. But I wonder if you ever been in a situation where you didn't want to be. Sometimes it's an annoying couple hours, maybe a family photo session, maybe a meeting you don't really want to take, a situation or a scenario that you don't really want to be. Sometimes it's a lot more serious than that. And you're like, yeah, every day I wake up, I'm in a marriage I don't want to be in. Maybe a job you don't want to be. This morning, as we continue our look at Joseph's life, we're going to see that he is in a place where he doesn't want to be. And the question that we should all wrestle with is, in those times and in those seasons and situations and circumstances in our lives where we are places we don't want to be, how do we respond? And what happens? If you have your phones or your tablets, I'd invite you to follow along with us this morning in the Bible app. It's a free resource that you can find in whatever app store you utilize on your device. And once you have the Bible app installed on your device, the feature that we use together each and every week is called the Events feature. You can go to the Events feature and either write in Lakeside, Algoma, or enable your location, and Lakeside will pop up. You can follow along with us that way. If you have a traditional Bible with you this morning, we are in the very first book of the Bible, the Old Testament book of Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis 39 today. If you're joining us via the stream, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Brian, and I'm part of the team here at Lakeside, and the verses will be available for you on the screen below. We're going to dive into Genesis 39 in just a minute, but just to catch you up, we've been working our way through the life of Joseph, and what we saw in Genesis chapter 37 was an introduction to Joseph. That Joseph was 17 years old at the time, and he was his father's favorite son. And he came from a family with a lot of dynamics at play. 4 wives, blended, favoritism. Joseph didn't make things any easier when he went out and he tattled on his brothers, and his father gave him an elaborate gift so that it was clear to all his brothers that he was, in fact, his father's favorite, and his brothers hated him and wanted to kill him. Eventually, some of the brothers intervened, and they decided that they wouldn't kill Joseph. Instead, they would sell him into slavery, and that's where Joseph's story ends at the end of Genesis 37. And then Genesis 38 that we looked at last week, it takes a detour away from Joseph's life into the life of one of his brothers. And we see how his life unfolds with some of the situations and circumstances of his life and his relationship ultimately with his daughter-in-law, and how that gets messy. And then we pick back up in the life of Joseph in Genesis 39, where we start this morning. Genesis 39, verse 1, where we read these words. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. Remember, Joseph had been taken against his will, sold by his brothers into slavery. The Ishmaelites take him, and they take him to Egypt, and now there's a slave auction. And Joseph is bought. And he's bought by Potiphar. Potiphar's a high-ranking official we see here. He's a captain of the guard. He has influence, he has wealth, he has prestige, and he has power. And he buys Joseph to put him in his service. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him. And he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. Now, notice Joseph is in a place that he doesn't want to be, sold in circumstances he doesn't want to find himself in, and yet as he is living his life, God continues to bless him. God is blessing Joseph, and vicariously Potiphar as a result of the job that Joseph is doing. And he notices the job that Joseph is doing, and he notices that Joseph is doing quality work, that God is blessing it, and so he promotes Joseph. Joseph is there under less than ideal circumstances. But notice, he doesn't sit and have a pity party for himself. He isn't paralyzed as a result of what has happened to him. He continues to put forth effort. He continues to be a hard worker. God blesses him. God blesses Potiphar. Potiphar then blesses him and gives him a promotion, more responsibility. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. God, again, we see it again. God is blessing Joseph. He's blessing Potiphar vicariously as a result of Joseph being in his home, to the point that Potiphar is hands off. He is hands off. And he says, Joseph, manage my household. Manage my money, manage the responsibilities. So much so that we're told that the biggest decision in Potiphar's day was what he would eat. That's the trust level that's been established between Joseph and Potiphar. That Potiphar is completely hands off, and the biggest choice and the biggest decision of Potiphar's day is what he will choose to eat. The rest is under Joseph's care. Now, Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me." Now, lie with me is sanitized. This is not the world's worst pickup line that has ever been spoken into existence. It was much more descriptive, much more sexual. It was clear to Joseph what Potiphar's wife was desiring. And you have this dynamic where Joseph is working. He's a hard worker. He's been successful. Potiphar has entrusted the household to him. He's entrusted all of his affairs to him. And now Potiphar's wife wants to have a sexual encounter with Joseph. And she makes her desires clear. Question: how do you respond? How do you respond when you don't have to work for it? When it's presented to you? What do you do in this moment, in this instant, where desire is clear and opportunity is prevalent? But he refused, verse 8 says, and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Joseph refuses. He refuses the opportunity. And he appeals to a couple things. He refuses the opportunity, and in so doing, he appeals to the trust that Potiphar has placed in him. He says, I can't do this thing. Potiphar has treated me like an equal. He's treated me like a partner in all of his affairs, in all his house. I have access to everything. The only thing I don't have access to is you, and that's because you're his wife. So I can't do this thing. He first appeals to the trust that Potiphar has placed in him. And next, he appeals to God. And he says, not only can I not do this because of the relationship that I have with Potiphar, but I can't do this because this is a sin against God. And herein lies the thing, that every time there's sexual sin, there's this dynamic where ultimately it's against God. We see that in Psalm chapter 51, where David is lamenting the affair that he had with Bathsheba. And in writing a song of confession and lament, he says, God, against you ultimately, against you are the one I've sinned. But there's always the dynamic with sexual sin that it's not just against God. In this case, it would have been against God and also Potiphar. And Joseph appeals that I can't do this because of what Potiphar has done and because it goes against God. So he shuts it down. He says no. And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her, or to be with her. He says no, and she does not stop. She's unrelenting. And desire continues to grow within her. And here's the dynamic. That Joseph's here, under the care of Potiphar, doing the job that he's been bought to do. Potiphar's wife continues to make advances toward him. He shuts them down, and she continues. But one day, when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. She finally gets Joseph alone. She has made it very clear what her intentions are. She grabs him by his clothes, makes it clear that she wants to have a sexual encounter. She's made this abundantly clear, and she continues to make it clear. And Joseph runs out of the house, leaving part of his clothes in her hand. If you are ever in a situation where you're being propositioned, if you're ever in a situation where you fear or feel like there is potential for assault, or you feel or you fear that your boundaries will not be honored, and you have an opportunity to get out of that situation. And unfortunately, there are circumstances and situations where that isn't always the case. But if there is a situation where you have that feeling in your heart and in your soul that something is not right here, get out. Take the opportunity to leave. Forget the optics. Forget what it looks like. Forget how you're feeling. Get out. Get free. Worry about it after that. But if you have that opportunity and you have that voice, whether it's the Spirit of God, whether it's gut intuition, whatever it might be, and you feel like somebody is propositioning you or somebody is flirting with you and it's unwelcome, or somebody is trying to force you into something, into going further than what you want to, whatever the case may be, get out. And I know it's seldom simple. I know it's seldom easy. I know it's seldom cut and dry. But follow that prompting if you have the opportunity. She grabs Joseph by the garments, propositions him again, and he just books it. He's out. And she's left holding his garments. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "See, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house." And notice what happens. She completely turns it around. She lies. She, who has been the aggressor, now plays the victim card and says that she is the one who is the victim. Now, what do we take from this? Well, there are a couple things. The first is that there is evil in this world. There always has been evil in this world. That there is desire that burns that is inappropriate. There has always been desire that burns that is inappropriate. Something that isn't talked about much in our society is this reality that sexual assault can happen to men as well. And if you are a victim, whether a man or a woman, whatever the case, if you are the victim or have been the victim of sexual assault, it can be very uncomfortable to talk about. It can be very difficult to process. Sometimes your body will have a physical response and a physical reaction, and you wrestle and you struggle through the implications of that, and you think that you start to war with your mind. Was it maybe consensual? Was it something that I ultimately, as a result of that? And remember, God has designed us with a material aspect of us, that's our bodies, and an immaterial aspect of us, our souls and our spirits, our feelings and our emotions. And all sin impacts every part of that. But sexual sin, we're told in the New Testament, is a special category. And if you've been the victim, or if you're currently being victimized, I know it's not easy to talk about. I know it's not fun to think through and to process through. But my promise to you is this: if you will talk to us, we will treat that in the strictest of confidences. And we will help you on a healing journey. Through counseling, it might be having to get you out of a situation or out of circumstances, and that can get messy, and we will put ourselves on the front lines for you. A few years ago, there was a mantra that was popular in our society, and it was "believe all women." And this is not meant to say that women are evil and they're hateful and they're a bunch of liars, but this situation right here highlights the problem with that. And this warfare between genders that is happening in our culture and in our society as the antithesis of what God designed. And it's so clearly a tool of the enemy and the evil one to try to divide and to build dissension between men and women. The reality that we see here, the reality that we see unfortunately in our culture unfold, is that women are victims of sexual assault, and men are victims of sexual assault. And it's always messy. And it's always hard. And Joseph, who did the right thing, has now been accused of attempted rape. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. And she told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came into me to laugh at me, but as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house." She continues her lie, now telling it to Potiphar, her husband, and the lie continues to spread. First, she told it to the other workers of the house. Now she holds on to his garment because she's creating the narrative. She's concocting the scene. And now she tells her husband. And as soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. Potiphar is irate, and rightfully so. If you are told that somebody has come and tried to victimize and sexually assault your spouse, and so he throws Joseph into prison. Joseph, who's innocent, is now condemned as though he's guilty. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Notice this dynamic. But the Lord was with Joseph, even when everyone else is against him, even when everybody else believes the lie, even when everybody else thinks the worst of the worst about him, because they think here's somebody who attempted to rape somebody, and that is the picture that they have in their minds of this man. Imprisoned, isolated, alone. But the Lord was with Joseph. Look, even when everybody else knows your story or thinks they know your story, even when everybody else will abandon you, even when everybody else will isolate from you, God is still with you. But can I ask the question, at least that comes to my mind? Is God why? Why do you allow this? Because if I'm God, here's what I want to do. Oh, I hear what Potiphar's wife has said. But I'm God, so I already know what she's going to say before she even says it. I know what she's going to say before I created the world. I know everything. So I also supernaturally know about cameras. And I'm going to introduce the technology right there miraculously that everybody's going to see what really that's what I want to do as God. I'd be like, no! We're not going to put an innocent man in jail. We're not going to allow that to happen. And yet what we see here is God is with Joseph. I don't know why God always allows us to go through situations and circumstances that He allows us to go through. I wish I had a succinct statement that I could give you that would just make it make sense. And I can explain it theologically, don't get me wrong. I can sit here and explain it to you theologically, but when you find yourself in prison for something that you didn't do, when you find yourself accused of raping somebody, when you were ultimately the victim, that theological explanation, it might comfort you ultimately, but in the moment, emotionally, it means very little. And yet, God allows Joseph to go through this situation and this circumstance that none of us would sign up for and none of us would desire. And He is with him. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know the details of what you're experiencing. But I do know this, that even though it may make no sense to you at all, God does have a plan and He does have a purpose. And we will see that unfold in Joseph's life. And we don't always have the benefit of hindsight that we do in Joseph's life in our own. I can't promise you that everything's going to turn out the exact way you want it to. But I can promise you that God's never going to leave you. He's never going to forsake you. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. So now Joseph is in prison. It's a new environment, and God continues to work through him. God continues to bless him. Sometimes God uses us in circumstances and situations that we would never desire. But he puts us there to ultimately accomplish his means. So if you find yourself right now in the midst of that, don't lose heart. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. God is with you. And he will always be. If you've been the victim of an assault, if you haven't been able to process the horrific things that were done and what you had to endure, I am begging you, let us walk that journey beside you. It will be in the strictest of confidences. But this is something that you need to heal from. And we recognize that there will always be scars as a result. But don't walk through it alone. Let us help you to support you and get any resources that you need. If you find yourself in a situation where you're being propositioned, whether it's work, school, online, friend, neighbor, whatever the situation is, and you have the opportunity to get out, get out. Don't worry about the optics. Get out. During the height of the Me Too movement and everything a few years ago, I was having a conversation with somebody who looks at the world vastly differently than I do. And they asked me a question that I believe they thought was going to be a gotcha moment. Because their belief was that the church needed to do more in this nature. And they asked me, well, when's the last time that you preached on consent? I said, excuse me? I said, when's the last time that you preached on consent? And I said, well, it's been a really long time, if ever. And they said, well, see, that's the problem. And I said, what you have to understand is this. That a biblical sexual ethic is built on a lifetime of consent and a lifetime of commitment. Our culture has so devalued sex to be this idea of, well, it's just an encounter between two people, and then whatever happens from there. And God's design is so radically different and so much more beautiful and powerful than that. Because God's design is that sexual activity is to happen within the confines of a marriage which is permanent. Built on a husband who sacrifices himself in the same way that Christ sacrificed himself for the church, that he elevates his wife and he puts her needs and her desires before his own. and a wife who responds in love and respect. That we hold one another up and we complete one another. And in a world that's going to sell you that sex is just an encounter, I'm begging you, choose God's way instead. I promise you, it will be more fulfilling. I know this subject can't always be easy to talk about or always fun. And as we talked about last week, if you've messed up in this area, there is grace, and God is bigger than our mistakes. And if this is something that you need to talk through with someone, please don't hesitate to reach out. God, I pray that you would help us honor you with our bodies. God, I pray for the people who have been victims of an assault. And I pray, God, that you would help them experience healing. And I pray for people who feel like they've had to bury that down and not talk about it with anyone. And I pray, God, that you would just enable them to no longer feel isolated and alone. Pray for the person who's been falsely accused, who's been wrongfully charged. God, we don't pretend to understand why you always allow the injustice that happens in this world to happen, and yet, Lord, I pray that even in those situations, those circumstances, for the people who are in the midst of situations right now where they would never desire to be, that you would empower them to not lose heart. God, help us honor you with every aspect of ourselves. Be honored and glorified, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Will have made a way to let mercy come. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Release from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. And darkness rejoices though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new. Now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. That's when death was arrested and my life began.
We have the hope of Jesus no matter our situation, no matter our circumstances. Our hope and our prayer is that each and every one of us will walk in that hope. God bless you. We love you. Have a great day.